I'll try to do it in a few words. I think one thing that's significant about summer reading is it's one of the oldest children's library programs that is held at almost every library in the country for over 100 years, which is only about as long as there have been public library children's programs. So if I'm being really honest, the number one reason that I do summer reading is just that tradition and that expectation. It's one of, I think, what people see as an essential service of the public library. And so those are my few words, an essential service of the public library.
It's that bridge from one school year to the other. We've had a lot of collaborative programs together to kind of promote those things. And so I think the kids also see it as a way to be involved in something in the community when they're not in school, as a place to go, programs to do, and also to find something interesting for them.
So when I first started working in Cranston in the elementary school level, the librarians at the end of the school year would be asked to put in their suggestions, and then one person would compile a list, print it out. I don't even think there was a digital copy at that point. And that was about it. There was cooperation between us and the public library, but it wasn't like it is now. So that's the way we used to do it. This year, I actually was able to work with Linda Arquetto, who's the head of Teen Services, pretty much because I do work here. But even if I didn't, now that I am aware that that's such an important component, I would definitely try my best to do it anyway. And it's different from the students that you have and the readers that you have in the school to the students you have here at the library. The people that come to the library, they are readers, they want to read, they have certain books that they like, and Linda knows all of that. She also can tell exactly how many books are in the system. Well, I guess anybody really can look that up, but she has a better idea of how they circulate, and I felt like this year was true collaboration, because before this, what happened was, and even last year when I worked here, and this is what got me thinking about it, was students would come in and they'd take out the list and they'd go, I want this book, and then we didn't have one. Or the one that we had is out and there's maybe 2 in the whole state. So I knew that that would just make me feel so awkward and uncomfortable, and I was just so thankful this year that I actually was able to sit down with Linda, because our shifts overlap by an hour, so we were able to sit down and actually have a conversation. So it was true collaboration and not just cooperation between the 2 different kinds of libraries.
So I do the middle school reading list for grades 6 through 8 for the district, and so this year I started by asking all the librarians in the district what, just send me a couple titles that you think are things that have been popular at your school throughout the year that you've seen have been, high circ items, and, let me know those. If there's any authors that your students love, just send me those just so I can compile that list and then go back. And I mean, you see those trends across the schools, the books that are popular in one place generally are popular in others. I rely heavily on the hard work of, the Rhode Island Teen Book Award Committee and, of course, the Rhode Island Middle School Book Award Committee to really get those lists out to us so that I can look at that, make sure that, we're buying all those books for our school to, promote those programs ahead of time, but also that we have those on the list. I talked to Emily multiple times about making sure that we had the copies that we needed for those books that were on the award winner list, but also what are the books that fit the theme for Libraries Rock, and books about music, and seeing, do we have those books? And I discussed this at length with Emily. A lot of our students are not reading on grade level. How do we appeal to students that are in grades 6 through 8, books that are, look like middle school books, but also have the content that is accessible to them? Because the purpose of the program is all-inclusive, making sure that all of our students are successful, making sure they feel that they're coming into the school year having picked out something that fit the theme, that was on that list. I think there's a certain element too of excitement of them seeing the book on the list, looking at that, reading the description, and bringing it to the library and saying, this is the book I want. So we took all those suggestions, we compiled them into a LibGuide, and that's what goes out to all of our students, all of our teachers, all the parents receive the list. So we're really trying to reach far. The principal goes out to the elementary school, all the feeder elementary schools coming into our school, and he brings those lists, he promotes that. We made the same thing you did, the bookmark with the QR code, so the kids can scan it with their device. But we really just try to make it so that the list has multiple copies in all of our branches, and as well as statewide if they want to place a hold on it, but that it really appeals to anyone that's reading from a kindergarten, first grade level all the way up to a 12th grade level.
That's interesting. There's actually a question here that is a direct follow-up from that I thought I might ask you, which is how have the public libraries and public librarians in your district supported those ideas and initiatives?
I think I can't say enough about the staff here. I mean, I feel like the public librarians, no matter what idea I've suggested or asked if it could be done, it's always looked at and analyzed and said, well, let's see how we can make that happen for students. When I've asked Emily to do outreach or bring other librarians into our school to do outreach for services, things like just library card sign up, promotion of services like tutor.com, we're always kind of bridging that. And I said to Emily recently, I feel like our school's like a mini branch of CPL, because I think the kids do think of them almost as one thing. I mean, our delivery services, intertwined, like all of those things.
And if I could jump in, and also
Yep.
you advocate for them if they're not sure if their library card works, if there's a book they need to return. I mean, you help facilitate that too. So I think that's part of the reason they see that connection is also because you do such a great job of advocating for them as public library users and, just smoothing the way for them reaching out to me if you need to, or sometimes it's just they need information. But you do a great job, and I think that's part of the reason they see us that way too.
Well, the doors to our school shut at 2:45, and they still have the rest of their day ahead of them. So how do you get kids to a place and encourage them to go out and find the resources they need, whether it be utilizing the databases through the public library on the phone, or actually going out there and choosing books that maybe my budget hasn't allowed for me to buy yet. I mean, you guys are on the cutting edge in terms of being able to buy a lot more up front when the new releases come out. So even if a student asks me, do you have this book, and I search the catalog and I say I don't, I'll always say to them, what's the nearest library to you, what can you walk to, and then I'll tell them if it's checked in at Hall or Auburn or their neighborhood library. So I'll give them the phone number and I'll say, now call tonight, and tell them you want to pick it up there, just so that they see that even though I can't get delivery, ILL holds to our library, if it's walking distance to them, it's still accessible.
So Emily, once the school librarians compile the reading list and send it over to you, what then happens, and how does that process evolve over the course of the summer?
Well, it has to start before the summer. By the time the summer has started, it's too late. We're in trouble if we haven't talked about it before the summer begins. Because what can happen is a summer reading list is incredibly powerful, even when it's optional, because it drives demand. So when we can get a copy of the list ahead of time and or be involved in helping create the list, we can anticipate that demand and we can purchase multiple copies of the titles, or we can just provide the information that statewide there's only 6 copies of that book versus popular titles there might be as many as 100 copies statewide. And we can make those adjustments before the list comes out, because as soon as it comes out, you have kind of 2 waves. You have the wave at the beginning of the summer of the people who are determined to beat everybody else and to be on top of things, and they have picked out their book and they want it right now. And then you have a wave at the end of the summer of everyone who says, there's summer reading, and now I need this book, and I need it now because school starts in a week or 2 days or yesterday, and they need to get their reading done. So we have those 2 big waves, and so I'm really grateful that we can work together on the list and see the list ahead of time so that we can purchase multiple copies of those books. And there's still a little bit of predictions you have to make, which one of these is going to end up with a whole list of 20 to 60 people, and which ones you have 1 or 2 copies and that's enough, because it's also true that the young people, they have a choice. And one thing that's great about the lists that the school librarians are producing in Cranston is they're full of choices. Sometimes we have to even emphasize more to the young people, like, no, you don't even have to read something that's just on this list. We just want you to read. But you're right. They feel empowered by the list. They can read the descriptions ahead of time. They can make a selection, something they want, and we can get it for them. Sometimes they just have to wait a little bit. So I think it's both exciting and scary for public libraries, the idea of summer reading lists. It's not scary in Cranston because we work on them ahead of time, but there are also private schools in Cranston too, so it can still get a little exciting when kids start coming in with their lists, determined to get this one specific book. And we don't necessarily know ahead of time how many copies of that will be available for them. And we really want to meet that need. We think it's so important. And I really value the way that schools, send young people into the library over the summer. But it's also very frustrating then if you can't meet that need. So that's why the collaboration is so powerful.
Is the list itself that powerful?
Yes.
That they bring people
Yes.
in? What is it about the list?
It is so powerful.
I think it's because of the
book
tradition.
cover images.
Yeah.
They see this book cover and they just want this book,
Huh.
which then sometimes is a disappointment to them, and they don't really want to hear that they are allowed to pretty much read anything they want because they want that one.
Yeah.
So, and we put suggested like everywhere on the page, but they don't seem to see that. They just see these book covers that they really want.
And Barnes and Noble and Barrington Books and other local bookstores have asked us for that list. I do send it to them, but my first and foremost is always trying to refer them to the public library. But if there's kids that really come in and are like dead set on getting that book today, at least the bookstores around here are aware of what the titles are, so they have them in stock.
Every year we do see at the reference desk students coming up, usually with their parents, and sometimes it's at the beginning of the summer, like you said. Sometimes it's crunch time, have to get something in, and they tend to gravitate a lot towards the awards list: Teen Book Award, Middle School Book Award, Children's Book Award list. From your end, do you see that students have a preference of which list they go to?
I feel like they want the books that they can see the covers, and even though we do have a link to past Rhode Island Teen Book Award nominees, and on each spine we have the little logo so that they can really just go and look on the shelves for themselves, and if they didn't even want to go to that link to that site. But yeah, I think it's the little description too. It's not only the book cover. It's just they sort of start saying, "Oh yeah, that sounds so good. I really want to read that."
I also think that for kids who are already public library users and visit the library regularly, they are more comfortable browsing and making their own choices. I think that parents have anxiety about choosing a book at the right level for their child, and so the list is empowering to them because they feel like, I know that this is appropriate, this is what the teachers will value, that if my child reads this, they will be ready for the next school year. And I also think that even for older students, those stacks of books can be overwhelming. There's so many choices. It's hard to know where to start. And a list that's curated and created by people like your school librarians, I think that it's also powerful because it's like a guide. So they're not overwhelmed by the incredible, vast collections that they see in the public libraries, especially when it's just like rows of spines with like titles and authors and little labels. It doesn't tell them that much about, what's inside the book and what they might like. But the way the lists are formatted, it's like a map, and they're more confident that they'll be able to find something that they'll actually enjoy reading. So I think that that's really valuable. And you make a good point that it's so visual. I hadn't thought about that, but it is. It's more like scrolling through Instagram or Pinterest than searching the catalog. The way you guys make your list, and you use the LibGuide products to do that, right?
Yes.
And it's all has a lot of clickable links, and it's easy to navigate. It's familiar. So I think that's powerful.
Yeah, I don't miss the days of photocopying an 8-page list
gosh.
for 700 students, because I think it was, for the most part, a waste of paper, because they're coming down to that one or two books that they see that they like, and they're not reading the rest of it. But having it, be accessible from the phone, or, it's on the Cranston Public Schools homepage, it's on the homepage here, it makes it so much easier for them to just kind of scroll through it and see what they like. But I think you bring up a good point about the parents looking at the list and saying, this is what my child should be reading, because I think that's what parents come back to time and time again is, I don't know what they should be reading. I don't know if the content is okay for them. So we really work to make sure that whatever is on the list the content would be okay for those incoming 6th graders and 7th graders. Not that we're ever trying to censor anything out of them, but just making sure that it's something that a family can feel confident that they're coming in and they're getting for their child, and it's going to be a good pick for them, reading level wise, content wise, and like you said, something the teachers value. Because a lot of our English teachers at my school are very into reading YA Lit, and they love when the kids come in and they've read something the kids have read, and that can be kind of a springboard for discussion for them as well.
And I think you brought up that we in Cranston feature the award nominees on our list, and the other thing that's wonderful about that is those books have all been read by librarians, and you make the point about they're people have had long discussions about whether they're appropriate and interesting and right for that age level, which is important too and is important to parents. And I think that everything on the middle school list was read by a librarian. Either it's an award nominee or you have the picks by librarians in school, and the conversations we have between all of us, all of those titles have been vetted by professionals, and that's really powerful too. Because you're right, there are concerns, especially around middle school, like what are they ready for? What do they want? They're transitioning, and you want to make sure that you're making good recommendations as opposed to just sending them into the teen area, where the books are absolutely appropriate for 6th grade all the way up to 12th, and that's a pretty big range. But the middle school list is tailored more to the age group, and I think that's something people value. And that's another reason the award nominee list, we can just pop those right on there, and that's 20 books that have been read by librarians and have that seal that yes, we really think that this is good for this age group.
Even with the accelerated reader, because once, if they can't find anything they like on the actual list, or if those are all gone, they are allowed to read anything that's found in accelerated reader. When you go into that record, it will tell you if it's M middle school, just those grades, or if it's M plus, which could be 6 to 10. So we try to, at least Linda and I, when we print out the little sheet to put in there, we make sure that it's just for middle school. And there's other information on there that if there's anything questionable in the book, it will be there. So it's good, like if the parent is trying to help them find a book, or if the parent's coming to get them their books, they can read up on that a little bit. I think big at my school is science fiction and fantasy.
Which is not so much at the middle school level, so it even shows how it changes within those few years.
So what's most popular at middle school level?
I'm going to say graphic novels probably would be the number one pick. I mean, when I run my report every month of what was circulated, the 741s are always the largest category of what was checked out. I notice a sharp decline in nonfiction reading from 6th to 7th grade. 8th grade, I find it's more realistic fiction. They're looking for, like, the descriptor they always say to me is, I want a book with drama. That's how they describe it to me. I'm like, well, that's not really a genre, but okay, I can't just put in drama and find it. But that's so their taste is kind of gearing up maybe towards what they would encounter in a high school setting. But I would say the majority of the students across the board always gravitate towards a graphic novel. I mean, I remember in library school we read a book called Radical Change, and it was about how traditional books were not going to be as popular in the future. Kids wanted something that was different, whether it be a more like interactive, like choose your own adventure type book, or something that was more visually appealing to them. And I think that the predictions that book made have been very true to our school. But Sue and I just discussed this today. Students are not gravitating towards electronic resources as much as everyone would assume. You think their phone is attached to them all the time, but every time I ask them if they want an ebook, the answer is no, I want a book in my hand. So that to me speaks quite a bit about the reading habits of students. It's like they're using their phones for reading for social purposes, but when it comes to anything having to do with a book, they want that book in their hand.
It's very true. I find the same thing. The only digital form of a book is an audio book, like some of the special ed kids that have a hard time getting through a book, reading it alone, will read it and listen at the same time. That seems to help them a lot.
Well, what those two things have in common is they're an immersive experience, and I think that they're still looking for that. And so whether it's an audiobook that surrounds you in a different way or whether it's like putting away your phone and taking out a book, I think they still want to be like sucked into a story.
Interesting.
Playaways have been very popular with our students too.
That's interesting.
They love having the audiobook to just kind of like, a lot of our students walk home from school. So they say, oh, I just listen to it when I walk home. So that, even though it's, not holding that book in their hand, so to speak, they're still using it like kind of on the go, and they like having that option to listen as opposed to just, sitting down and having to read. But so I've seen a lot of success, like you said.
That's interesting,
Students with, IEPs, that might be something that's written in as one of their goals, but I have a lot of students that just say to me all the time, I'd rather, if you have it, could I borrow that audiobook?
That's really interesting. Well, this is reading week at West. We haven't had it for a couple of years, so this year there were only maybe 5 or 6 presenters, but we're trying to build up to filling out all the spots for next year. Plus, it's pretty late in the year, so we're trying to change the dates too, because it's not really reading week this week anyway. So why not change it to March? What's the difference? So what we did Monday, I only videotaped it. The English department really did it. Was they all sang and danced to Michael Jackson's "Beat It," singing "Read It." Those lyrics, and the kids really, really seemed to like that. And these are high school kids. They really liked it. We had these T-shirts, and they're like, "Where can I get one of those?" That's as much as you're going to do to really get high school kids to get that excited about books, besides for what I was saying about the bookmarks with the QR codes, that in their class they could have 10 minutes to just check out the list. And I know this week also, at the beginning of every English class, for 10 minutes they have to read a book, which is not really usual for high school, which is sad, because I think we should keep that going. Something happens. I don't know, middle schoolers still seem to read a lot for personal pleasure. I don't know what happens to them. But not as much as elementary, right? Elementary school kids, it seemed like, and what you're saying about the nonfiction.
I think that, yeah,
They
there's definitely
loved nonfiction.
there's a shift in I think the reading interest in terms of that. For our students, for the promotion of summer reading, I schedule each team to come in, and I worked with Emily on getting a complete set of RIMSBA, RICBA, and some of the Rhode Island Teen Book Awards to have almost on display. I found the last few years of doing workshops with the students and meeting with all of them, I wanted them to hear about the books. I had book trailers for them, and then they filled out a form to say what title they wanted to go to the library and check out, as well as like a teen program they wanted to go to this summer at the library. But what I noticed was I didn't have the books for them to pick up and hold in their hands, and I thought, I feel like that would be something that would encourage them maybe to get to the library earlier. So if they see it, they hold it in their hands, they say, oh, this is definitely what I want to read for my choice this summer, maybe getting them in the door a little bit earlier for you. But last year, just having around the library, we posted the codes to scan with their device to watch a book trailer about all the, many of the books that we could find trailers for that were on the summer reading list. And that was a really big draw for them. I think they left there feeling like, oh, these are definitely the two I want to go home and, say to my parents, I want to go to the library and get this book, or I want to order it on Amazon or whatever. Just something about that visual piece of watching the clip about it. But I just thought, too, this year it's just nice to have them hold it in their hand and see, is it too long? Is it too short? Do I like the format of it? I mean, some kids tell me, I don't want to read it because I don't like the font. So just taking that into consideration for them. We do our promotion during lunchtime.
Nice.
Yeah, the public librarians visit every public school in Cranston, and we do it mostly during lunches at the middle and high school level. At the elementary level, we sometimes go door to door and we hit every classroom, or we'll do like assemblies. I think at the elementary level, it's a particularly big deal that with public librarians go in and we try to reach every kid. We definitely go to every school. We try to get every classroom within those schools. Someone might be on a field trip that day, but we really try to kind of have a personal contact with the kids, and so we're sort of personally inviting them to come into the library over the summer. And we're really fortunate in Cranston that we're able to do that because it's through the school librarians that we set up those visits, and it's complex. School schedules are challenging. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of events at the end of the year, like field day and things you have to work around. And so we're lucky the school librarians in Cranston will work with the principals, the reading coaches, the classroom teachers, whoever they need to pave the way for us so we can go in and try to talk to every kid in that building and tell them about what we're doing as our summer reading challenge, because in the public libraries, in addition to meeting people's needs in terms of the summer reading list, we're trying to do a fun program where in some way you keep track of your reading and are rewarded for it. So, I mean, to go back to your question about philosophy, that's of course like the great conflict for me, because on the one hand, summer reading programs in the public libraries are so wonderful and important, and on the other hand, they're based on the concept of somehow measuring your reading, which is not really a measurable thing. So every year we torture ourselves about how to structure it, like how should we actually have them record their reading and what should we reward them for, and it's easy to throw up your hands and say like, this is crazy, this is not how people read. But at the same time, for some kids it makes a difference, it's motivating, it's exciting, and so we just try to make it as fun as possible. But so we go into at the elementary level, we really talk about that summer reading challenge and how they can keep track and what they may receive if they do. And I think at the middle and high school levels we focus more on the books themselves, and we try to get them excited about reading in general, because they're less likely to be impressed by keeping track on a piece of paper and then like getting a small prize at the end. So we have to reach them on a more emotional level, like here's why you, or an identity level, like here's why you personally should be a reader over the summer, and here are books that might relate to you personally, and like emphasizing the choice. But at the elementary level, we're like, prizes.
And I think the kids are a great ambassador for their parents, going home and telling their parents about all the things that the public library has to offer, because sometimes parents aren't aware of the programs and the things available to them. So when the public library comes in and promotes those things, the kids get excited, and then they go home. We had for many years at the elementary school, we had a letter. It was like, dear mom and dad, these are the books I want to read this summer. Please take me to my local public library to pick them up. And it really did promote them going home and saying to their parents, this is what I want to do this summer, and these are the places I want to go. So I think that reaches out to them, and then they go home and talk about what's being offered.
Steph and I were talking before this conversation about the follow-up in the fall. I think it's a challenge for public librarians, because when we hit mid-August, we're like, done with summer reading. Like, we were really excited, and then we're really glad it's almost over, and we're wrapping up, and we're moving on to the next thing. And in the schools, the teachers are getting a new group of students. So it's kind of their beginning and their fresh start. They're not necessarily thinking about what they did over the summer. The teachers send them off at the end of one year hoping they'll read, and then new teachers get them on the other end. But I think that they're excited to look forward. So nobody's really at the end of the summer looking at the kids and saying, how was your summer reading experience? What worked for you? What did you enjoy? And even what did you read? There are some small pieces at different schools. Maybe they have to do a little report, and we do like certificates and things at the end for kids who participated. But I still feel like that's a gap we were talking about, just the way the timing works and people's energy levels and what they're focused on. I think in the fall, rather than reflecting on, reviewing, and celebrating what they've done, we all kind of move on, and that's something that in the future I'd like to do better.
You mentioned the word fresh start. This year,
which has special meaning.
Yeah,
in
this
Cranston.
year, Cranston Public Library and the schools really came together to get students cards. And I think that even though that was something that was done in October of last year, I think that does have an effect on the summer reading program, because students came to us, they didn't have a card, they couldn't use their card because there were fines, and through that kind of working together, I know in my school alone, we had 168 kids get cards that never had cards before, or had cards that they were unable to use. So even if they're not walking into the public library and checking out a book, if they're using the e-zone, if they're using the databases online, to me, I feel like that's a win. And my principal said the other day, well, were you able to pull data about that? And I said, I don't even know if that's something I could ever possibly do. But I just feel like handing that card over to them, I feel like that was just a win right there. Because someone took that application, they went home, they wanted a parent signature, and they came back to me and found me to hand me that application. So they wanted that card. And then by the time...
And then you sent the application to the public library, and a librarian here reviewed their record, updated everything, sent a card back to you. You tracked that child back down again and gave it to them. So yeah, that's okay.
But I mean, it was a huge undertaking on the public library's part, because I know you were inundated with hundreds and hundreds of applications. But I think that was something that was priceless for the district, because it gave them access to tutor.com, which they may not have been able to use otherwise. And my hope is that those cards, they're going to come into the library this summer, and even if they're not checking out books, at least using resources here, programs, all those types of things. It's not just about the books. It's getting them in the door.
Well, I know a lot of districts do not have the cohesive school library department that we do here. A lot don't have like a program supervisor. Some districts only have a few librarians and they kind of work independently. I think that's part of the problem. But what I would say is just go and approach the public librarians, because I'm sure that every single public library in this state would be more than happy to help out the schools. I think that would be the first step anyway.
And even having the public library just come in during parent events. We had a 6th grade orientation, which was last month. So it's not that far removed from the start of the summer reading program, but Emily was there, present, handing out card applications, talking about teen programming, what was happening at the branches. I think just being in the school setting. I think someone even pointed out, oh, it's so strange to see you in a school when I usually see you at the public library, but you had the banner out. It just showed that cohesiveness, that everybody, is working together for that same goal. And we also had you come into open house and do card applications then. So just getting the public libraries, in your schools so that parents can see and kids can see that it is a working relationship.
And as public librarians, we appreciate that opportunity to reach people who are not already coming into the library. To circle back to something one of you said at the beginning, is there are some kids who are readers and their families of readers who are already coming in. And then there is a huge part of the population that has not walked into a public library in the past year, but they're in their public schools. It's an opportunity to reach out to people that we don't always see. And that would be my number one tip, is don't wait till the summer. It's really a year-round collaboration that makes the summer work.
I'm going to speak from the public library perspective. I'm going to wear that hat right now. I think that this library has the most incredible programs for these kids. And they do, I don't know what the statistics are on how many children come into this library to do things. But like Linda, for instance, the teen librarian, she has a little garden outside, and there were like, in the rain last Saturday, there were at least 6 students there, a couple of which I was surprised that they would want to do something like that. You do get community service hours, but if you don't want to help.
There are easier ways to get community service hours.
Easier ways than carrying dirt around, but they all seem to really love it. She just picks the right kind of events. And then the children's Elephant and Piggy. They did an Elephant and Piggy last night. I mean, it's just great. I wish, when my kids were little, I wish that there were programs like that. But Emily came one day for an after-school program for 3D printing this year. And I would love to do more of that kind of collaboration. It's just hard for the students to be able to stay after school since they have sports and they need rides, or they have to catch the bus or whatever. And we didn't get a really great turnout. But I would like to start doing something during the school day for at least some of the population, the at-risk population or something, to do some sort of, I don't know what, but something about books, some kind of programming, either like that, technology, or even just for reading. I think they would really like that.
we had unlimited budgets, I would probably say I'd love to be able to, whenever a kid comes in and says, I want this book, we had that budget to go out and just buy, X amount of copies of whatever it is. And you're always going to have students that come in and request books that, there's one copy and it's in, Newport and it's checked out right now. And like you said, you don't want to disappoint them. So I think having an unlimited budget to just really appeal to all those tastes and the different things that the kids want, whether it be, I really want this book, but could I get it on audio? And just having that kind of money to cater to the needs. I say that all the time. If someone gave me an unlimited budget for my school for 1 year, I think you'd see our reading scores jump even higher, because that's just it. I find there's very few kids that actually dislike reading. There's just not always in my collection what that student would want. And I mean, we're lucky to have interlibrary loan with, RILA, but sometimes delivery service, maybe I would say I would add that in too. And I mean, there have been school districts in the past that keep their library open, school library open 1 day a week or something. And maybe that would be, not for our district, because I think so many kids live within walking distance to a public library, but for maybe other districts that kids don't have that ability to walk, having the school library open for them.
And I was thinking about saying what you did about keeping the school libraries open, just that access for those kids who are more familiar and comfortable with that. And the other thing would definitely be some kind of summer reading app. I think that having something that kids could carry with them, have on their phone. I think even young children, they are not that interested in using our computers, but they love to play with their parents' phones. I think that having an app for our part of our challenge, where you're keeping track of your reading, I think that's the place to have them keep track of their reading. And so that's partly a budget challenge, but also a technical skills challenge, because there are companies out there that have created summer reading tracking apps, and I don't like them. I think that they're created not by librarians, and I really wish that we could be leaders in that area. So it's partly a budget thing, but partly I think it's on us to develop the skills that we can reach people through technology. And I think, we've been a little slow to do that, and I'd like us to do some catching up, because, it's too late for us to invent Wikipedia or Google. It's already been done, but maybe a summer reading app is something that librarians could be a leader on. And I think that then I just imagine them kind of carrying that with them everywhere. Their phones are with them so much of their time. I'd love for their reading to be in their pocket in the same way. And I think that if we do ever want to reach a larger number of young people and older young people and encourage them to in some way reflect on their reading over the summer, I think that that's the best format. I think a cute paper thing like we give to the younger kids is not going to be compelling at the middle and high school level, but I think there's the possibility. As adults, we use apps for things like our fitness and our eating and our navigating, and I feel like there's probably room. Goodreads has all kinds of challenges and opportunities to be social around reading. I wish we could be a leader in that area. That would be my dream summer reading expansion and extension.
Just that the adults, I think, need to really channel a lot of the enthusiasm, because if the adult in front of the students is not enthusiastic about the programming coming forward, and I try really hard, because my son is young as well and participates in the summer reading program. I try to go to a lot of the programs, so I also have that personal connection to, I've seen Ron Sargent, the balloon guy, so I can promote how awesome he is. But I think it's, if we're not going into it and showing them we're readers, we're involved in the programs ourselves. The adult program is available to all of us. I think if we're not going out there and doing that, it's really hard to kind of garner that enthusiasm on their end if they feel like the adults around them are not excited about it. So I just go in there, and I think the kids just know at this point, like, they're not fazed by my my crazy antics about it, because that is my goal, is that I want the kids to leave our school and look to the public library for the next 10 weeks as their kind of new place to go, and then we'll see them back in September and hope that there's been a really good bridge in between there. So just have a lot of enthusiasm for it.